Just getting started on a, this is going to be a base for an entertainment center. And it's going to have 4 drawers in it. So I'm just going to go through what I'm doing here, and maybe you'll pick up a tip or two. It's going to be quite simple. We're basically building something about 80.5 inches. It's going to have 4 drawers in it, and on top there'll be something sitting on top, so I don't have to worry too much about that. And then TV mounts on there, so it's an entertainment center, and nothing too elaborate, so shouldn't be too tough. Alright, let's keep cutting. Now I just made a cut. I took my first piece that I cut freehand, and now I've got this factory edge right here, about as straight as I'm going to get anything, and I use that as a fence. Now some people are always a little bit confused about, well, how do you determine where to put this piece of wood? Well, I'm going to show you. So on my saw, the good side is over here, the piece that I want. So I follow this mark right here. So it may be different on your saw. So find the mark that you follow that will give you your accurate cut. And then all you basically have to do is just measure from the outside to your mark. In my particular case, it's 1 9/16. So I just add that onto my measurement, clamp your board into place, make your cut. Now I'm going to cut these to length. Now one of the most unfun thing is cross-cutting veneer plywood, especially in the dry season. So basically what I do, I'll make a mark where my cut is going to be. I know that this is going to go up against the fence. I'm going to cross-cut this on my table saw. So make a mark where the cut's going to be. What I'm going to do, I'm going to find my knife. I'm going to score the veneer with a knife. And I want to go through the veneer, so give it a good score. Now on my good side, I'm not going to get very much rip out at all. There will be a little bit on here, but I'll just put that at the back of the project. I need something nice for the very front of it. And I'm going to put a piece of tape over top of this, and that will actually help eliminate a few things as well. So put a piece of tape down when I find it, and we'll see at the table saw. Alright, tape down. Make sure you're using a T-square. Last thing you need to do is have some kickback and have this thing flying through the shop. And it's just a matter of taking your time and making the cut. Let's see how we did. That looks perfect. We looked at the other side that wasn't cut. You can see that it's pretty rough. Now to eliminate that, if you knew the thickness of your blade, you could just make another mark and make another cut. But because this is going to be at the back of the project, I'm not going to have to worry. I'm going to cut the top and the bottom of my little cabin I'm building. Now, this is going up against a wall, so I don't really have to make a beautiful cut, but I don't want to take the chance of tearing something out. You know, sometimes you get a chunk. So I still am going to just make my cut along my line. I just clamped on a straight edge. And then I'm going to just freehand it. Should be good enough for that side cut. You can see the difference. Just, this is the good side. How much cleaner that is than that cut there, just by making a razor cut. So I really like the manufacture of this plywood. It's actually a 1/16 wider than 4 feet. And I need 2 feet. And my blade's a thin curved blade. So I make the cut. Should be pretty close, 2 feet each. I'm just going to put a chalk line on, make the cut. So our pieces are cut, ready to start doing some assembly. Now on this project, I don't know if I mentioned it, but the drawers are already built. This is, I'm retrofitting a different one. So that's awesome. I don't have to build any drawers. So I know my measurements. So basically, I just cut a piece of wood to the size that I need, piece of plywood. So I can just put that in between my dividers, put the next one up, screw it on. Perfect. Now, when you're working with big stuff and you're just by yourself, it's kind of tough. So what I'm doing is I've got my lines for the center marked out. And then all I'm doing is just pre-drilling. I'll countersink a little bit on the bottom. Lay this up against a piece of plywood that I've clamped into place. Screw it down. All I'm concerned about is being flush at the front. That's the important part. Alright, the dividers are all put in. So now what I'm going to do is just bring my top up, mark my lines, drill the holes, put it on top, screw it together. But I still will use my, can't trust that these are perfect, so I will still use my, my little guide here. Looks good. I'm just cutting up some material here. We're going to build a base so that this is sitting off the ground. I'll keep on cutting and show you what I do when I get her built. Got all my pieces cut for the base. Now, we're going to screw this together. And basically I'm going to put a support right down the center of every one of these. Going that way. But whenever you're trying to, you know, kind of hold something and screw it at the same time, it always goes wonky on you. So what I do, just pin it. Hit it with a brad nail. Just try not to hit your finger. And now that she's held into place, then it's just a simple matter of screwing her together. Gotta find the screw gun. Just a simple base, just to lift it off the ground so a guy can trim it out. And then basically we're just going to screw it in up here. Screws are all hidden by the drawers, so it's not that big of a deal. Now we're going to put in this piece here. And that's going to screw into the stud. So I drill the hole through this piece so that we can get our driver in there. So don't forget to do those little things, because you get pretty embarrassed when you get to the job site and you can't figure out how to screw it to the wall. Couple screws, good to go. Time to put the sliders in. So, what I did, you got to determine, on my drawer there, I did some measurements, and basically figured out the distance where my slider has to be. So instead of drawing a line, trying to line it up, I just cut a piece of 1x4, set it on top, screw it in. That way you get it perfect every time. I just clamp her into place. Got a piece of scrap here, so I know how far to bring it out. This is going to be my trim piece. So you can see I've got a bunch of it cut up here. I'm just using MDF because we're painting this. Line her up. Put a screw in there. Now I usually put it in the slot that's got a little bit of a groove in it so we can move it if we have to. Now make sure you're using your good glasses when you're doing this, because you want to make sure you see, and you want to get it right in the middle, because if you go below or above it, it'll push the, if you're using you know, a flat headed screw. It'll push the slider up or down. That looks pretty good. In the back. On to the next. Drawers are working great. Now I'm going to put on the back piece, square this thing up. Time to square this up. That was a smart looking little box I built, but it doesn't know if it's square or not. So all I'm doing, just screwing a piece of plywood. Well, I've got to square it up first. So I don't have a long enough clamp, so I'm just using a ratchet strap. Seems to work pretty good. I'll just get this piece of plywood in here. It's a little bit smaller, but that doesn't matter because I'll screw it this way and then screw it across. And it'll all be good. So I just got the trim started on here, and that's as far as I'm going to go. I'll trim it out when I get to the job site. So basically I just put just pin the top in and then stuck these in. They're nice and flush on the inside here. And that's it. Pretty tough. Definitely got to be above the grade 6 level to build something like this. But it's not that tough. Just take your time like everything else. But I am going to show you what it looks like when we finally get her all done at the job site. Alright. Just getting to the last stages of our little drawer unit here for our entertainment center. So you can see I got the walls all done. I've got everything drywalled and primed. Looks really good. But we have to, we're going to paint this the same color as the walls. So I've got to get the trim done on this. And like I said before when I was in the shop, I wanted to have to do everything in here because I wasn't too sure how it was going to blend up to the walls. So I'm going to zoom in and show you a couple options that I decided. So I wasn't too sure how this was going to fit or look inside this, you know, these walls. And our first thought was to trim it out. But then you've got this 45 coming in here and a fairly large gap. We thought it'd look a little nicer if it was a little bit more seamless. So I cut the trim at a 45 here. Now you want a lot of flow in whatever you're doing. So you can see that that goes up against the wall Looks kind of nice, so we've decided to do that. So the next step, we got to get this top piece in. So I've got to get it fitted. I've cut it at 45 on the end. So we got to nail and glue this. You want to make sure you glue your joints because we're going to mud those. If you don't glue them, they're going to crack. So I'm going to get this all fitted up, and we'll nail that on, and then we can do the bottom, and then our trim is done. I don't know if we're just good or lucky, but it turned out perfect. Now this bottom piece here, we had to shim this to fit, so now I got to make a magic cut. I'll measure that up. I'm going to have to take it out to the sawhorse and use a skill saw, I think. I can do it. Finally got this thing to fit. The floor does one of these. So I got it fitting good. Now I have to do is just round this edge over, put a little bit of primer. So I cut that with a skill saw, even though it's a curved cut, you can still do that. And then I finish it off with just this little block plane here. An ancient little block plane. I think my dad bought me this when I was a kid. But he could recognize pure talent, I guess, I don't know. Anyway, I've had it for a long, long time. And it works pretty good. I just use it for the job. But that keeps it nice and flat. Gives it a little nicer finish. So I'm going to round this over, put a little primer on there, and then glue and brad nail it on. Finally getting done. It was a lot of work. I got some sweat going on now. Alright, she's all nailed in. Now the next step, I have a little bit of tear out here, playing around so much. Next step, I'm going to mud these joints up. Hey, we're just about done. Not going to bore you with that. I'm going to show you though when it's all said and done though. Alright. Alright, we're just finishing up on our project here on the entertainment center. And this is the cabinet that I built. Now you can see that I just incorporated it right into the wall. So it's right on the bottom. And then we just drywalled right up to the edge. Painted the drawer fronts black. And it's worked out really, really good. Now we had very, very little room to do anything on this because we got a post in the wall over here. Everything's tight, but we made it work. So, simple little project down there, complicated project everywhere else. But it worked out really good. So there, another job done.